Tonight, we are not telling a story. We are returning to a night when tea leaves whispered louder than kings, when the bedtime of royal women was not a matter of personal choice, but a carefully measured ritual that decided the pace of an empire's breath. You don't know it yet, but this night's tea will echo through time, long after the lanterns fade, long after the silks are folded away and forgotten. A story, your story, will remain steeped in every cup. Close your eyes. Let the noise of this century dissolve. Tonight you will wake into another life. The year is 1612. The air feels heavier here. You breathe in the scent of rose water and the faint sharpness of iron rain, dripping onto sandstone courtyards. You're no longer who you were. Tonight, you are a Khas Khana servant in the Zenana of Emperor Jahangir's palace. But titles are just masks. You know what you truly are. A pair of invisible hands that prepare the tea ritual, the one that determines when the emperor's wives will sleep. And tonight, those hands will carry not just a tray of tea, but an unspoken command that will decide the rhythm of the entire Mughal court. Before your body stirs, your ears awaken first. The Zenana breathes in layers, silk curtains brushing softly against each other, glass bangles clinking like distant water chimes, the faint hum of a lullaby not meant for children, but for queens. But tonight, the melody feels different. The Sahibi-Taj, the imperial consort herself, is awake earlier than usual, and when she stirs, the entire Zenana shifts, as if the walls themselves hold their breath. You sit up. The silk of your angarka clings to your skin with more weight than usual. Or perhaps it's the heaviness of the knowledge that in less than an hour, you will be the one carrying the tray that signals bedtime. Not for yourself, but for the women whose sleep patterns command the empire's heartbeat. And tonight, a strange murmur lingers in the air. A message, perhaps. A message that the emperor himself has sent, folded within the choice of tea leaves. You enter the Khas Khana with care. The brass samovar gleams softly in the lamplight, still and cold, waiting for you to awaken it. But something stops you. There, on a silver tray, lies a pouch of kashwa leaves from Kashmir. This is not the usual blend, not the fennel and vetiver mixture that cools the body in these humid Agra nights. Kashwa is different. It is bold, spiced with cardamom, saffron, and sometimes a whisper of cinnamon. A tea that wakes the senses. A tea that sharpens conversations. You understand now. The emperor has no intention for the Zenana to sleep early tonight. In the palace, words are not always spoken. Sometimes power speaks through the subtle language of tea leaves. You pour water into the samovar, watching as the surface quivers. A mirror of things yet to come. The steam rises slowly, curling in the air like silk banners left behind after a forgotten battle. A single thought anchors itself in your mind. A cup of tea tonight will echo in stories for centuries. You don't know if that thought is yours, or if it has been lingering in this room long before you stepped in. In the Zenana, thoughts often blur. Personal fears mingle with centuries-old memories. You stir the pot with deliberate care. One wrong touch of spice, one misstep in the brewing time, and the night's entire balance could shift. It is strange, isn't it? You, a servant whose name no one will remember, holding the timing of an empire's breath in your hands. You carry the tray, walking through the marble corridors barefoot. The stone is cool, grounding, but each step feels like a silent drumbeat. The world outside sleeps in linear time, But within the Zenana, time curls back on itself. Here, history is folded within whispers, glances, and the precise pouring of tea. The jolly screens of the Zenana glow softly, lattices of stone where light filters in fragmented patterns. Behind them, women of immense power sit in shadows. They are queens, consorts, poets, strategists. But tonight, none of them will sleep until you place the tea tray before them. You pause. Let your fingers graze the intricate patterns of the stonework. They are cold, timeless. For a moment, you wonder, centuries from now, will anyone remember the hands that carried the tea which kept an empire awake? You take a breath. The Zenana is not merely a place, it is a world folded within another world. Outside these walls, ministers discuss wars, architects design domes, and merchants haggle over silk. But inside, behind curtains and carved screens, real power flows in hidden currents. You bow low as you enter, the tray steady in your hands, your eyes lowered as is expected, but your ears are wide open. Here, survival belongs to those who can listen between silences. The Sahiba doesn't speak, she doesn't need to. Her glance towards the tray is enough. Kawa, she notices. The room does not react visibly, but the air shifts. Glances are exchanged, a subtle repositioning of silks and shawls. Tonight's tea has announced what words dare not. The emperor does not wish the Zenana to sleep yet. You begin to pour. The thin stream of amber liquid flows from the spouted vessel with the grace of calligraphy in air. Each cup you fill is more than refreshment. It is a message. Each sip they take is a line in a script being written in real time. The story unfolding tonight is one of delayed sleep, of strategies conceived in extra hours, of rivalries kept alive under the soft glow of oil lamps. You are not meant to know what discussions will follow, whether alliances will be whispered, grievances aired, or futures altered. But you know this. By delaying bedtime tonight, by the Emperor's silent command, carried in the scent of cardamom and saffron, the Zenana becomes the quiet heart of the Empire's next decisions. You retreat with the empty tray, yet your hands still feel the weight of unseen stories. Outside, the marble courtyard shimmers under a moon caught in the water of a fountain. The reflection trembles, then stills. You watch, knowing that much like that ripple, the decisions made in the Zenana tonight will spread quietly, reaching places far beyond these walls. You were just a servant, but tonight you were the pulse of history. No chronicler will mention you by name. No court poet will craft verses about the servant who poured the tea that delayed bedtime. But you know, you feel it. This night, this tea will echo. It will ripple through chambers, through decisions, through futures yet unwritten. And as you stand there, in the quiet of the night, you don't know it yet. But tonight will echo through time. End part 1. Before your eyes fully open, something stings your nose. It's sharp, sour, alive. The scent of damp leather, sweat-soaked cotton, and old rose water that's been clinging to someone else's cloak. You slept in it last night. Not by choice, but because the walls of the Zenana breathe with whispers, and tonight, whispers moved faster than bodies. You were told to rest, but rest is a strange word here. You sit up slowly. Your body protests. Muscles you don't remember using ache with a quiet defiance. You're not supposed to feel this much. Servants are meant to glide, to blend into walls, to exist without edges. But your bones, your skin, they remember. They remember every step, every tray, every bow. Your eyes flutter open. The light is low yet sharp. It cuts through the lattice screens, slicing the darkness into patterns that dance across your face. You're in the servant's alcove now, a space that doesn't belong to you, but cradles you when no one else is looking. The air is thick, as if it has been exhaling slowly for centuries. You breathe in too shallow. The air doesn't want to be disturbed, but you take it anyway. You'll get used to it. Or you won't. The Zenana doesn't ask. It only waits to see who lasts. You push aside the cloak. Its weight leaves a ghost on your shoulders. You stand, legs stiff, ankles aching. The marble floor is colder than you remember, and each step feels like a negotiation. But the palace does not pause for sore muscles. You step into the corridor, and the first thing that greets you is the breath of the walls. They are alive here, not in a way you can explain, but in the way the carved flowers seem to watch, the way the mirror mosaics hold pieces of every face that passes by. You walk slowly, but inside you are racing. You are racing against time, against other servants, against eyes that notice too much. Your fingers brush the edge of a copper tray resting on a niche. You remember this tray held the emperor's pawn last evening. By now its scent has faded, but the weight of its presence lingers. Every object here holds stories. Every object listens. You make your way to the water courtyard. A fountain murmurs softly, its rhythm unbothered by the urgency that grips your steps. You pause by its edge, scooping water to splash on your face. The shock is immediate, cold, sharp, merciless. It doesn't wake you, it resets you. You are no longer the servant who slept in someone else's cloak. You are now the hands that must serve. A rustle of silk. You turn, but you don't need to look directly. You already know who it is. The younger attendants move like butterflies, too fast, too eager. Their anklets chime a little too loudly, betraying their nerves. But the older ones, the ones who've learned, they move like shadows, their silk sighing against the stone. One of them nods at you, a silent command. The tea for the morning ritual needs to be prepared. Not the kahwa from last night. This one is gentler. Vetiver and fennel to cool the body after a restless night. You make your way to the khana, the private kitchen where only a few hands are trusted. You are one of them. Today. But trust is as fragile as a thin porcelain cup. One crack and it shatters. You carry that knowledge with you as you gather the ingredients, the brass pot, the bundle of dried vetiver roots, the tiny jar of fennel seeds. Every item is placed with care, as if you are arranging the pieces of a puzzle whose picture you are not allowed to see. As the water begins to heat, your mind drifts to the conversation you overheard last night. Not with words, but with glances, with the way the sahiba's fingers tapped her cup. She had not wanted to sleep. She had wanted to think. And when the Zenana thinks late into the night, the court feels the consequences by dawn. You stir the pot, watching the surface shiver. The steam rises, carrying with it the scent of things that the world outside rarely notices. The scent of choices made in silk-draped rooms, of decisions folded into quiet gestures. A voice interrupts your thoughts. It is low, measured, the senior attendant. She asks if you've eaten. You haven't, but it is not a question that expects an answer. You nod politely, and she moves on, satisfied. In the Zenana, concern is shown through questions that aren't meant to be answered. You finish brewing the tea, straining it into a silver vessel. Its warmth seeps into your palms, a quiet reminder that you carry more than just liquid. You carry the rhythm of the day ahead. As you walk towards the Zenana hall, the palace awakens around you, not with noise, but with a rising pulse. The soft sweep of muslin against stone, the muted clink of jewelry being fastened, the distant echo of a flute somewhere in the courtyard. The empire does not rise with trumpets. It breathes into its own skin slowly. You enter the hall. The air here is different, still, yet heavy with thoughts. The Sahiba sits, surrounded by cushions, her gaze fixed on a point beyond your reach. You bow, placing the tea tray before her, stepping back into your designated invisibility. Yet, you are seen. You always are. She lifts the cup, and for a moment, the entire hall seems to exhale. The day has begun, not with a bell, not with a decree, but with the lifting of a single cup. You retreat, your role in this moment complete. But the day is far from over. You know that beyond these walls, the courtiers will assemble, the petitions will pile up, and decisions that shape futures will be made. Yet, none of it starts without the quiet rituals you serve. You pass by the mirror gallery. Your reflection greets you, fractured into 100 pieces by the mosaic tiles. You do not pause. Servants here are not meant to reflect. In the distance, a commotion. A message has arrived from the Daiwani Khas. You don't know the words, but you can feel the shift in the air. A decision was made late last night, and now its ripples are touching the outer court. You carry on, preparing the next task, knowing that every ripple, every echo traces back to moments like the one you just served. You return to the Koskana. The pot needs cleaning. The silver tray needs polishing. The tasks are endless, repetitive, but within each repetition, a history hums. You may never write in the empire scrolls, but your hands, your steps, are already inscribed in its breath. You have learned to find stories in silences, to read decisions in the tilt of a cup, in the choice of a spice, in the timing of a meal. Power here is not shouted. It is poured, steeped, served, and savored. As the sun climbs higher, the Zenana shifts again. Restlessness brews. The younger attendants chatter softly, their words curling around the columns like vines. You listen, not with interest, but with necessity. Information flows in these whispers, and survival depends on knowing which current to follow. You step out into the garden, if only for a moment. The air is thick with jasmine. The heat presses gently, not yet oppressive, but persistent. You kneel by the fountain, dipping your fingers into the cool water. The ripples spread outward, a perfect mirror of how influence travels within these walls. You stand, straightening your angarka, ready for the next task that will arrive, unannounced but expected. The palace doesn't need to remind you. You already know you are part of a rhythm older than your own breath. But even as you move, even as your hands polish, pour, and present, a single thought remains. What if they notice you don't belong? The question lingers, not as a fear, but as a constant companion. You carry it with grace, because invisibility in the Zenana is both protection and burden. You smile softly, though no one is watching, and return to your duties. Because in this world, duty is not an act, it is survival. Part 2, End. Your first task today is simple. Stay alive long enough to reach midday. But simplicity is a lie inside these palace walls. Here, even breathing is an act you perform carefully, measuring each inhale so it doesn't disturb the air that isn't yours to claim. You move through the corridor with an empty tray, but you are never empty-handed. You carry the weight of glances, the pressure of unspoken expectations. The marble under your feet remembers every footstep. The walls remember every whisper. You know where you need to go. The inner courtyard, where the Sahibi Taj will soon sit, for the morning durbar of the Zenana. You must prepare the refreshments. Simple, number, because the lemons are overripe today, the sugared almonds are scarce, and the rose water has been rationed tighter than ever. You must arrange a tray that looks effortless, rich, and abundant, using supplies that are barely enough for one person's breakfast. You pick up a pomegranate. It is softer than it should be. Your thumb presses into its skin gently. Too much, and it will bruise. Too little, and it won't split cleanly. You've done this before. Yet today, your hands hesitate, because you know. This morning, the Sahiba's mood will be as sharp as the pomegranate seeds. And if the tray is not perfect, it is not just the fruit that will bleed. Food is not a ritual of hunger here. It is a language of control. You slice the pomegranate, arranging its jewels onto a brass plate. You dust them lightly with cardamom powder, hiding their overripe softness beneath a veil of fragrance. You are not just preparing a dish. You are preparing a story that says all is well. The Zenana is abundant. The empire breathes luxuriously. Even if you know deep inside that today's luxuries are woven from yesterday's shortages, you balance the tray carefully as you walk. Your hands appear steady, but your thoughts race. You count each step, each heartbeat. You remember the rule you were taught in your first days here. Walk as if you are invisible, but think as if every breath you take is being watched. The hallway to the Zenana Durbar is narrow, lined with mirrors set into the walls. You catch glimpses of yourself in fragments. Half a face here, a blurred eye there. You wonder, not for the first time, if that's how the court sees you too. A collection of useful pieces, never whole. You enter the Durbar quietly. The Sahiba is seated on a low divan, her back straight, her eyes distant. Around her, the attendants fan softly, their arms moving in perfect synchrony. The air is warm, heavy with a floral scent that fails to mask the undercurrent of anticipation. You place the tray on the low table before her, arranging each item with the precision of a jeweler setting precious stones. You bow, stepping back into your place. The Sahiba picks up a slice of pomegranate. She does not smile, but she does not frown either. You take this as a victory. Small victories are the currency of survival here. The morning Durbar continues. You are not part of it, but you are part of its breathing. You stand at the periphery, always listening. Conversations drift through the air. Like smoke, there is talk of trade, caravans delayed, of a petition from a noblewoman who demands a larger stipend, of a new consort who has yet to learn the art of silence. Each sentence is a thread, and though you are not allowed to weave, you collect these threads carefully, storing them in the corners of your mind. Your stomach tightens. Hunger gnaws quietly. You cannot remember when you last ate something that was not left over or discarded. But there's no time to think of food now. You feel a sharp gaze sweep over you. Not hostile, not friendly, merely assessing. You lower your eyes. The Zenana does not reward attention seekers. It rewards those who can be useful without being noticed. As the Durbar ends, you are given another task. Clean the marbled terrace. The monsoon winds have brought with them a film of dust that clings to every surface. You pick up the brass water vessel and the coarse cotton cloth. The sun has not yet reached its fiercest, but already the heat is beginning to press against your skin. You work in silence, scrubbing the stone tiles, knowing that every streak left behind will reflect your incompetence. Your hands ache, the same motion, back and forth, back and forth. Your mind drifts. You think of the Zenana cats who sleep without care, draped over cushions, their fur soaking up luxury you will never touch. You envy their simplicity. They do not have to perform, they exist. And yet, even they know where not to sit. Even they understand the invisible borders that dictate survival in this place. As you rinse the cloth for the fifth time, your fingers cramp. You pause, flexing them subtly. Pain is expected, but it must never be visible. You glance around. The senior attendant is watching. You resume scrubbing. Pain can wait. The sun climbs higher. The water vessel is nearly empty. You know you will need to fetch more, but you also know the well is far, and every trip is a chance to fall behind in your tasks. Falling behind is dangerous. Falling behind means someone else will have to pick up your work, and debts in the Zenana are rarely repaid with kindness. You make a choice. You pour the remaining water sparingly, stretching its use, making every drop count, a game of survival played in droplets. As you finish, the senior attendant calls you over. Her tone is neutral, but you hear the weight behind her words. The Sahiba wishes for a particular fan to be brought from the storeroom, the sandalwood one, inlaid with ivory vines. You nod, though your heart sinks. The storeroom is a maze, a place where servants disappear for hours, and sometimes disappear entirely. You make your way there. The corridors twist. The air becomes denser. The further you walk, the more distant the palace feels. You reach the storeroom, its wooden doors groaning softly as you push them open. Inside, darkness clings to the walls. You step carefully, navigating past stacks of unused carpets, forgotten chests, and disassembled screens. You search, your fingers tracing over objects, searching for the sandalwood fan. You find it, tucked behind a pile of silk bolts. Its surface is dusty, but the ivory inlay is untouched by time. You clean it gently with the edge of your sleeve, making it presentable as you turn to leave. You hear footsteps. Soft, deliberate. You freeze. A voice, barely above a whisper, calls your name. You turn slowly. It's an older attendant, one who rarely speaks. She hands you a small parcel wrapped in plain cloth. Her eyes meet yours briefly. No words are exchanged. In the Zenana, silence carries more weight than promises. You tuck the parcel into your sash, knowing instinctively that refusing is not an option. You do not ask what it contains. You do not ask who it's for. You will deliver it when the moment arrives. You return to the Zenana hall, the fan in your hands, the parcel pressing against your side. You place the fan beside the Sahiba, bowing low. She acknowledges it with a slight nod. Your task, for now, is done, but the parcel's weight reminds you that tasks are rarely simple here. The day stretches on. Duties overlap. You serve sherbet to guests, adjust cushions, carry messages disguised as casual observations. Each act is laced with an undercurrent of strategy. You are not a player in this game, yet you are the piece that moves most often. Your body aches. Hunger scratches at the edges of your patience, but you endure, because endurance is survival. Because in this world, no one asks if you are tired. They only ask if the task is complete. You step into the shade of an archway, allowing yourself a single breath of stillness. The Zenana garden stretches before you, its pathways lined with marigolds. The scent is heavy, grounding. You watch as a young prince chases a peacock, his laughter piercing through the layered silences. For a moment, the palace feels human, but moments are fleeting. You adjust your angarka, smoothing out imaginary creases, and return to your tasks. The parcel's weight remains against your side, a silent reminder that survival here is not just about completing tasks, but about carrying secrets without letting them sink you. Part 3. End. There's no room for weakness in this world, not when even the gods are watching. You feel it as soon as you step into the marble corridor leading to the small temple chamber of the Zenana. The air here is different, denser. It presses against your skin as if testing your resolve, as if whispering, "You may serve queens, but you kneel for gods." And in this palace, kneeling is not a matter of belief. It is a matter of survival. You adjust the parcel tucked under your sash. The weight is still there, persistent, patient, but it must wait. Ritual comes first. You step into the temple. It is not grand. There are no towering pillars or gilded domes, but its simplicity commands a different kind of reverence. Incense coils in the air, thick and biting. It stings your eyes, blurring the edges of the room, softening the sharpness of stone into something dreamlike. You kneel. Even if you don't believe in the gods carved into these walls, you kneel. Because here, belief is not optional. It is demanded by the very dust that carpets the floor. You bow your head, the cold marble kissing your forehead. You whisper the words you've heard 1,000 times, their meanings blurred by repetition. But today they anchor you. Today they are a shield. You are not just a servant. You are the offering. The mantra loops in your mind. You're not just a servant. You are the offering. It wraps around you like a second skin as you rise. Palms pressed together and approach the small altar. The brass oil lamp flickers, its flame a fragile sentinel in the thick air. You light another wick, watching the flame stretch and settle. It feels like breathing in reverse. Behind you, the quiet shuffle of other footsteps. You do not turn. You do not need to see who they are. In the temple, identities blur. Status dissolves. Queens, concubines, attendants. Here, they all kneel the same. Here, silence is louder than titles. You hear the soft clink of a silver thali being placed on the offering table. Fresh jasmine garlands. A bowl of sweetened rice. Small clay lamps waiting to be lit. Each item speaks of devotion, of obedience. But you know the truth. These offerings are not just for gods. They are a language, a negotiation, a silent plea for favor, for safety, for a day without punishment. You step aside, your eyes lowered, as the Sahiba herself approaches the altar. Her presence fills the room without sound. She does not look at you. She does not need to. Her existence bends the air around her. She kneels, her movements fluid, rehearsed. And yet, today there is a tension, a pause, almost imperceptible, as she places the garland onto the brass idol. You notice it, even if no one else does. You're not just a servant. You are the offering. The words loop again, steadying you. The priest enters, his voice a soft chant that blends into the incense haze. He begins the morning arti, his gestures slow, methodical, as if reminding the gods of their own rhythms. The flame circles the idol, casting shadows that dance across the stone walls. You watch as those shadows stretch towards you, brushing against your feet. It feels like an old memory, though you cannot place it. The Sahiba's eyes are closed, but her mind is not here. You see it in the tightness of her fingers, in the controlled stillness of her posture. She is planning. Every syllable of the prayer is Another move in the quiet game of power that breathes within these walls. The arti ends. The priest places a pinch of vermilion on your forehead. You bow once more, your hands folded, your breath held. You're not just a servant, you are the offering. As the Sahiba rises, her gaze sweeps the room, pausing briefly on you. A signal. You follow her as she exits, careful to maintain the exact distance expected of you. Too close, and you intrude. Too far, and you risk irrelevance. She walks towards the private garden, where sunlight filters through trellised vines, scattering golden patterns across the stone path. You sense it before you see it. A conversation will unfold here. Quiet, veiled, yet sharp enough to wound. She sits on a stone bench, her fingers playing with the edge of her dupatta. You stand a few steps away, your eyes lowered. Another attendant arrives, younger, nervous. The Sahiba speaks softly, but her words cut through the air. The parcel, you know. The moment has arrived. You step forward, retrieving the parcel from your sash, and place it gently on the stone beside her. She does not look at you. Her attention is already on the contents. A folded letter sealed with a mark you do not recognize. A vial of oil, dark and viscous. She picks them up with care, her fingers betraying nothing. The younger attendant bows and leaves. You remain. There are no words exchanged, but in the silence you understand. This is not a mere delivery. This is a ritual of belief far older than temple chants. The belief that power must be hidden, veiled in layers of routine, camouflaged within acts of devotion. The Sahiba speaks, finally. A single sentence. You are to take the vial to the Zenana physician. No questions, no delays. You bow and leave. As you navigate the corridors, the weight of the task settles onto your shoulders. You are the thread in a tapestry you cannot see. Each step you take weaves you deeper into a pattern that has no beginning, no end. The physician's chamber is at the far end of the Zenana, a place that smells of crushed herbs and ancient scrolls. You knock softly, entering when summoned. He is an old man, his movements slow but precise. He accepts the vial without comment, his eyes lingering on you for a heartbeat too long. You know better than to ask. You bow and exit. You return to the temple. Not out of instruction, but out of necessity. After carrying secrets, you must cleanse yourself with silence. The incense is lighter now, the air clearer. You kneel once more, the cold of the marble seeping into your bones. The mantra finds you again. You're not just a servant. You are the offering. You close your eyes, the world narrowing to the rhythm of your breath. The palace, with its swirling currents of intrigue, fades for a moment. Here, in this space, you're not invisible. You are essential. You are the breath that keeps the flame alive. A bell chimes softly, signaling the end of the ritual hour. You rise, adjusting your angarka, preparing to step back into the palace's endless cycle of service. But something within you has shifted. The rituals you perform, the prayers you mouth, they are not cages. They are anchors. In a world where everything is designed to erase you, rituals are the marks you leave behind. Marks that no eye can see, but the walls remember. You exit the temple, your steps measured, your mind steadied. You're not just a servant, you are the offering, part 4. And no law protects you, only power does. You realize this truth again as you stand at the edge of the Diwani Khas courtyard, watching the governor's cart glide past. It is a simple cart, draped with fine muslin, flanked by guards whose spears catch the morning light. The governor does not look at you. He does not have to. His gaze is reserved for those who matter, and you, with your bare feet dusted in marble powder, are not one of them. But his presence ripples through the air like a stone dropped into still water. Conversations pause, movements soften. Even the pigeons on the palace roof seem to reconsider their fluttering. You understand. In the palace, power is not worn. It is inhaled, exhaled, and reflected in the silences of those who serve. You lower your eyes, not out of reverence, but out of instinct. Here, eye contact is a privilege you cannot afford. You're not just a servant. You are a layer beneath the silk rugs, a whisper behind the stone walls. And yet, as the cart moves past, a thought flickers. Centuries from now, historians will wonder what his name even meant. They will dust off manuscripts, interpret signatures, debate his influence. But today, here, his word decides who eats and who starves. His glance determines who rises and who vanishes. You adjust the brass water vessel on your hip, its weight grounding you. Your next task awaits. The Sahiba's decree must be delivered to the Karkhana supervisor. A request for a specific fabric pattern, a subtle command disguised as a preference, but you know the truth. Preferences in this palace are commands in velvet gloves. You navigate through the labyrinthine alleys of the Karkhana, where artisans bend over their crafts with hunched devotion. The air is thick with the scent of indigo dye, molten wax, and sharpened metal. You step carefully, your presence barely acknowledged, yet meticulously noted. Every artisan knows the hierarchy here. Every artisan knows who sent you. The supervisor approaches, his eyes scanning the parchment you carry. He nods, not to you, but to the weight of the seal stamped onto the message. His deference is not yours to claim. It belongs to the Sahiba, whose wishes thread through these looms like invisible wefts. He gestures for you to wait as he selects a bolt of cloth, a deep maroon laced with golden vines. You recognize it. It is the pattern of patience, the pattern used when words are withheld, but messages must still be delivered. You take the fabric, fold it with care, and return to the Zenana. The sun is merciless now, but shadows stretch differently in the palace. Shade does not belong to everyone. You walk in the slivers of it, tracing the edges where privilege fades into necessity. You pass a group of junior attendants, their giggles soft, their glances sharp. You ignore them. Their games are not for you. The Sahiba's chamber is cooler, perfumed with vetiver-soaked curtains that flutter lazily. You present the fabric, your hands, offering not just cloth, but compliance. She accepts it with a nod, her fingers brushing its surface as if reading the unspoken conversation woven into its threads. You are dismissed with a flick of her fingers. You step back, returning to the outer corridor. But the palace does not allow idle feet. Another command arrives. The Mir Bakawal, the master of the kitchens, has summoned you. A change in the afternoon menu. You make your way to the kitchen complex, where hierarchy takes a different form, measured in the heat of stoves and the sharpness of knives. The Mir Bakawal stands tall, his posture a silent decree. He informs you of the change. The Sahiba desires a kalia for lunch instead of the usual lentil stew, a delicate dish requiring almonds, saffron, and patience, ingredients that, today, are scarce. You offer no protest. You are the runner between desires and reality. You are the bridge that no one notices until it cracks. You assist in grinding the almonds, your hands moving in rhythmic circles, each motion a silent defiance against exhaustion. The kitchen breathes differently. Here, power hums in the clang of utensils, in the precise slicing of meat, in the timing of spices. The chefs wield their knives not just on vegetables, but on reputations. A single mistake, a single overcooked grain of rice, and punishments arrive faster than apologies. You deliver the dish with the same care as you would cradle a newborn. The tray is light, but the weight of expectation is not. As you approach the Sahiba's chamber, you notice a minor official lingering near the entrance. His robes are fine, but his hands are restless, betraying his anxiety. You pause, maintaining the respectful distance. You hear snippets of conversation, petitions, permissions, denials. The official bows low, but you see it in his posture. Today is not his victory. He retreats, his footsteps echoing against the marble, carrying the weight of unmet requests. You enter, place the kalia before the sahiba, and withdraw. You do not stay for her approval. In this world, silence is the only gratitude you are owed. But you are not done. The Zenana steward approaches you with a scroll. You are to deliver it to the court clerk. In the outer diwan I am, the outer court. A space where hierarchy roars openly, where the line between nobility and servitude is drawn with sharper ink. You navigate through the palace's arteries, each step an act of calculated invisibility. The Diwanayam looms ahead, its arches grand, its spaces too open for comfort. Here you are exposed. Here every noble's glance is a reminder of your place. You spot the court clerk, seated behind a low desk, his fingers stained with ink, his eyes scanning parchments with the disinterest of someone who knows power lies elsewhere. You present the scroll. He takes it without looking at you, his focus already shifting to the next transaction. You step back, melting into the periphery, but something tugs at your thoughts. A conversation nearby, hushed yet urgent. A noble complains about the new levies imposed on the merchants of Lahore. You note it, not because it concerns you, but because in this palace every ripple reaches the Zenana eventually. You retreat, but as you pass through the colonnade, you catch sight of a young prince, barely 12, seated on the veranda, his tutor by his side. The tutor speaks of law, of codes etched into stone tablets, of justice administered by kings. But you know, here, law is a language spoken by those who already own its letters. For the rest, survival is the only code worth memorizing. You make your way back through the servant alleys, where the rules are clearer or sharper. Here, hierarchy is not wrapped in poetry. It is direct, carved into the daily rituals of labor. You watch as an old gardener tends to a row of marigolds, his hands steady, his face a map of creases. He's been here longer than most courtiers, yet his power lies solely in the patience of his craft. You greet him with a nod. He returns it, an exchange more genuine than most you have shared today. You return to your station, the day's tasks pressing forward like an unending tide. But even as you polish brass trays, arrange cushions, and carry silken shawls, the truth hums beneath it all. No law protects you, only power does. And power here is not loud. It does not announce itself with drums or proclamations. It whispers in the choice of a fabric pattern. It breathes in the shifting menu of a royal lunch. It sharpens itself in the silences between a queen's glance and a servant's bowed head. You know your place, but you also know that places, like shadows, shift with the sun. Part 5. End. You haven't spoken all day. There's no one to speak to. Words are scarce in the Zenana unless they serve a purpose. Conversations are measured in utility, commands, confirmations, corrections. But none of these require you to speak your own thoughts. And so, you carry them silently, like coals cupped in your palms, glowing hotter with every hour. Your hands are raw from polishing the copper utensils lined along the courtyard shelf, the repetitive scrape of cloth against metal, the dull ache in your wrists, the ever-thinning patience. It all blurs into a single question that loops within you. Maybe I'm not meant for this. You glance up for a moment. The sky is blinding, washed with an indifferent noon light. The courtyard is deserted now. The sahiba has retreated to her chamber after the midday meal. The attendants dispersed like leaves caught in a silent wind. You are left with the weight of chores that never announce themselves but always arrive. In your hands, the same tool, the same weight. A brass water ewer, heavy with neglect, its curves reflecting your face in distorted fragments. You see yourself, not whole but in slivers. A cheek here, a blurred eye there. You wonder if that's how the palace sees you too. A collection of moving parts. Useful, but never complete. The sun hasn't moved, but your chest feels tighter. You pause, allowing yourself to lean against the coolness of the stone column. The relief is brief. Rest is not a currency you can afford. There's always someone watching, even when there isn't. Maybe the gods made a mistake. The thought arrives unbidden, sharper than it should be. You feel the sting of it, as if it were spoken aloud. But no, it stays inside. Another ember among the coals you dare not drop. You pick up the next utensil, a shallow serving bowl, its edges lined with intricate floral engravings. As your cloth moves in circles, your mind circles too, around the same doubts, around the same questions. You remember the stories you were told as a child, of loyalty, of service, of the invisible pride in keeping the palace breathing. But today, that pride feels distant, abstract, like a promise made to someone else. You try to focus. You count each rotation of your cloth. 1, 2, 3, until the numbers blur. You try to remember the last time you were simply still. Not out of exhaustion, not in the stolen moments between tasks, but truly still. You cannot remember. The hours stretch, and with them, your patience thins. The sound of a distant argument floats through the open corridor. Two noble women, their voices sharp, slicing through the air like blades wrapped in velvet. You cannot hear the words, but you hear the rhythm, the cadence of entitlement. Their disputes are performances, their victories are loud. You wonder what it must feel like to be allowed to speak your displeasure. Your fingers cramp around the cloth. You release, flexing them subtly. The ache travels up your arm, settling in your shoulder, burrowing beneath your collarbone. A familiar ache, one that is never acknowledged. Pain, after all, is as common here as dust. No one speaks of it because everyone carries it. You return to work. Not because you wish to, but because stopping feels more dangerous. In this palace, movement is safety. Stillness invites scrutiny. But the tasks no longer numb you. They amplify the noise inside. Every swipe of the cloth feels like a question. Why? Why does this matter? Why does it have to be you? Why must obedience be the only language you are allowed to speak? The questions grow louder. You feel them pressing against your ribs, expanding with each shallow breath. A tray slips from your hand, It clatters onto the stone floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness. You freeze, no one comes, no one notices, but you feel the weight of the error settle onto your skin like a bruise. You pick it up, inspecting for dents. None. But the mistake lingers, not in the object, but in you. You retreat into the alcove near the water cistern, a small, shadowed space rarely noticed. You crouch, your back against the cool wall, your hands resting limply on your knees. You allow yourself to exhale, slowly, fully. The air feels foreign, as if borrowed. The ache in your chest sharpens. It is not just physical now, it is layered, woven with the threads of exhaustion, of invisibility, of the relentless demand to endure. Maybe I'm not meant for this. The thought returns, softer this time, not as an accusation, but as a question. You close your eyes. You imagine, just for a moment, a life outside these walls. A life where your hands are not bound to endless chores, where your worth is not measured by how quietly you can exist. The vision is blurred, vague, like a reflection in rippling water. But it is enough to make you breathe differently. A gentle shuffle of feet brings you back. An older attendant passes by, her arms full of folded linens. Her eyes meet yours briefly. There's no pity in them, only recognition. A silent acknowledgement of the same ache. You rise, smoothing your angarka, masking the tremble in your hands. You return to the courtyard, resuming the tasks that awaited you. The copper gleams under your cloth, indifferent to your turmoil. The palace, too, remains unchanged. Its walls do not care for your struggles. Its corridors will not remember your fatigue. But you, within yourself, feel the fracture. You're not allowed to shatter, but you're allowed to crack. You continue through the rest of the day, quieter than before, though no one notices. You perform every duty with precision, yet each task feels detached, as if your hands and your thoughts are moving on different planes. The evening approaches. You are sent to the Zenana garden, instructed to light the small oil lamps that line the pathways. The act is ceremonial. The sahiba enjoys the reflection of flickering flames in the water channels at dusk. You move from lamp to lamp, striking the flint, coaxing reluctant flames to life. Each lamp that ignites feels like a breath released. Each small flame is a fragile defiance against the gathering dark. As you crouch by the last lamp, your reflection ripples in the shallow water. You look at yourself, not the fragmented face in polished brass, not the blurred outline in muslin mirrors, but your face, softened by waterlight. You realize something then. The palace may not see you, the sahiba may not remember your name, but you are still here. You're not just a servant, you are the offering. The mantra returns, not as a burden, but as a quiet truth. You rise, the oil lamp's warmth brushing against your fingers, and step back into the courtyard. The tasks remain. The hierarchy persists. The weight does not lift. But within you, something breathes differently. Tomorrow you will carry trays. You will polish copper. You will kneel in rituals where gods remain silent. But tonight, as the palace exhales into dusk, you allow yourself a moment of stillness. And in that stillness, you are not invisible. You are simply human. Part 6. End. There's a line in the sand today. And you know, before the sun sets, you must choose which side you stand on. The morning begins like every other. Polished brass trays, measured footsteps, quiet breaths. But beneath the stillness, the palace hums, with a different rhythm today, an undercurrent of tension, sharp and unmistakable. You feel it in the glances exchanged between attendants, in the hurried shuffle of sandals against marble. Something is shifting. You are sent to the storage pavilion near the garden, tasked with retrieving the Sahiba's personal inkpot. A small errand, yet the air feels heavier as you step into the corridor. The farther you walk from the Zenana, the clearer the whispers become. The court scribes are on edge. A new decree has arrived from the emperor himself, one that will alter the daily rituals of the women's quarter. A reduction in luxuries, a new list of restrictions, a reshuffling of power disguised as necessary austerity. You hear the words as you pass: rationing of rose water, reduction in silk imports, dismissal of unnecessary attendance. Unnecessary. The word follows you like a shadow. You know this decree is not merely about resources, it is a political message. And in the silent chambers of the Zenana, messages are written upon bodies, not paper. You reach the storage pavilion. The inkpot is there, nestled among scrolls and writing implements. You pick it up, its surface cool, its weight insignificant compared to the decision it now represents. As you turn to leave, a senior attendant steps into your path. Her eyes search yours, sharp and unwavering. There is a petition, she says, her tone soft but lined with steel. The Sahiba will not present it herself. She needs someone unseen, someone whose absence from the court will not raise questions. The silence between you stretches. You understand what she is offering, what she is demanding. Carry the petition to the steward. Deliver it quietly. Let it pass through hands and seals until it reaches someone who can challenge the decree. No one will thank you. No one will claim you. But if you refuse, you will be marked, not by name, not by punishment, but by the quiet erasure of opportunity. You are invisible, but today invisibility is power. You take the folded parchment. Your fingers tremble, not from fear, but from the gravity of choice. Do you obey the silent command, stepping beyond the lines drawn for you? Or do you retreat into the safety of routine, into the comfort of roles that promise survival but never dignity? The walk to the steward's office is short, yet each step feels like an unraveling. The parchment in your sash burns against your skin. You pass through corridors lined with portraits of queens and consorts, women who smile from within gilded frames, their stories curated, their struggles erased. You wonder how many of them carried similar parchments once, how many lines they crossed before their names were forgotten. You reach the steward's office. He is seated behind an ornate desk, his quill scratching softly against paper. He does not look up as you enter. You know your place. You are expected to wait, silent, patient. But today, patience feels like surrender. You clear your throat. A small sound, but in this space, it reverberates like a challenge. The steward's eyes lift, his gaze narrowing. You bow, presenting the parchment without a word. He takes it, his fingers lingering on the seal. His expression is unreadable. A breath passes between you, weighted with unspoken implications. You know this is not your place, he says, but you also know sometimes lines are drawn just to be crossed. You lower your gaze, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. You have delivered the message. The choice now belongs to those who claim power. But your choice was already made. As you turn to leave, the steward's voice stops you. This will be remembered, he says. You do not know if it is a warning or a promise. You return to the Zenana, the day resuming its familiar cadence, yet everything feels altered. Tasks that once felt routine now shimmer with tension. Every glance, every whispered conversation carries an edge. You have stepped into a current, and you do not know where it will pull you. By evening, the repercussions arrive. The Sahiba summons you, not with fury, but with a measured stillness that unsettles you more than anger ever could. She is seated by the Jaroka, the last light of day casting gold into her lap. The steward accepted the petition, she says, her tone unreadable, but the decree remains, for now. You bow, awaiting dismissal. But she continues, you crossed a line today. The silence that follows is suffocating, but then a flicker of a smile. Good. The word is not a reward. It is a marker you have been seen, not just as a servant, but as a piece in a game far larger than yourself. The Sahiba dismisses you with a wave of her hand, but the air between you feels different now. You are no longer merely an offering. You are, perhaps, a messenger. Yet, not all see your actions with favor. Later that night, as you prepare the lamps in the side courtyard, you are approached by an attendant. Older, bitter, her eyes sharp with resentment. Who told you to play with power? She hisses, her words slicing through the hush of evening. When the punishment arrives, it will not knock on the Sahiba's door. It will come for hands like yours. You do not respond. There's no argument that will satisfy her. You understand her fear. You carry it too. But you also know sometimes lines in the sand are drawn to keep people silent. Today, you stepped over one. The consequences are yet to arrive. That night, as you return to your sleeping quarters, the weight of the day presses into your bones. You lie on the reed mat, your eyes tracing the patterns of the wooden ceiling. Sleep feels distant. You think of the parchment, now sealed within a bureaucrat's scroll pile. You think of the Sahiba's smile, fleeting but sharp. You think of the steward's words. This will be remembered. You wonder if you chose defiance, or merely followed a different obedience. Tomorrow the routine will return. Trays to carry, floors to scrub, rituals to kneel into. But tonight you are different. There's no applause for what you did, no celebration. Yet, beneath the surface, something has shifted. In a world where your existence is meant to be silent, today, your silence became a message. What happens next will follow you into legend or oblivion. Part 7 End. A single nail costs a day's work. You understand this truth not from books, but from the way your hands ache after hours of service. You know it from the weight of coins that never find their way into your palms. In the palace, value is not just measured in gold. It's measured in sweat, in quiet obedience, in how well you make yourself small. The sun is not yet fully risen, but the Karkhana courtyard is already alive with movement. Looms creak as weavers pull threads taut. Potters shape clay with hands that never rest. And metalworkers hammer away at sheets that will become the decorative shields for a noble's child's play. You are sent here today not to observe, but to barter. The Sahiba has requested a new inkstand, an ornate one with filigree work. But the Karkhana stores are running thin. The imperial treasurers, tightening their grasp after the emperor's decree, have slowed the flow of materials. Ivory is scarce. Silver is rationed. Every piece must be justified. And so, you're given a task to negotiate, to trade. You carry a parcel under your arm. Embroidered muslin handkerchiefs, rejected by the Sahiba for their slightly misaligned pattern. To you, they are perfect. To her, they are waste. But in the Karkana, even waste is currency. You approach the Karkana overseer, a man whose eyes flicker with calculation. He knows why you are here before you speak. What do you offer? He asks, not unkindly, but with the weariness of someone who weighs lives as easily as cloth. You present the muslin handkerchiefs. His fingers examine the stitches, the delicate threads. He does not smile, but you sense his approval. These can fetch a price outside the palace walls, perhaps in the bustling alleys of Chandni Chowk, where merchants crave even the slightest whisper of royal craftsmanship. He makes his offer. In exchange for the muslin, you will receive the inkstand, but it will be made of brass, not silver. Filigree work, yes, but minimal. The finer details require ivory, and ivory is beyond negotiation today. You know the Sahiba will not be pleased, but you also know this is the only path forward. You accept. The inkstand will be ready by dusk. Until then, you are instructed to assist in the Karkana, not as a visitor, but as a laborer. Your first task is with the dyers. You plunge lengths of cotton into vats of indigo, your arms straining as the fabric resists, reluctant to surrender to color. The dye clings to your skin, staining your nails, marking you with the day's labor. You learn that the indigo itself is more valuable than many of the servants who work with it. A single mistake, a wrong mixture of lye, an incorrect drying angle, and the entire batch becomes worthless. You move to the potter section next, where young apprentices shape clay into delicate oil lamps. You are given the task of smoothing edges, trimming away excess. Each lamp, when sold outside, might fetch a few copper coins. But within these walls, their value transforms when they line the pathways of a royal procession. A knife, just one, requires 2 days of skilled labor. You overhear this as a metal worker haggles with a clerk about the allocation of steel. The clerk's ledger is merciless, numbers on a page deciding who gets to craft and who must wait. You wonder how many lives are worth a pair of shoes. Later, you assist in folding finished textiles, the rich brocades destined for noble women's trousseaux. The weavers speak in hushed tones about a rumor. The emperor's treasurer plans to auction surplus fabrics to merchants in Gujarat. Fabrics once reserved for royalty, now reduced to bargaining chips in political games. By midday, your back aches and your palms are raw. But the inkstand is ready. It is simpler than what the Sahiba desired, yet the craftsman has carved tiny floral patterns along its rim, a quiet rebellion against austerity. You cradle it carefully, feeling its warmth from the forge, and begin your journey back. On your way, you pass the spice courtyard, where merchants are delivering sacks of cinnamon, cardamom, and saffron. The steward inspects each consignment with the scrutiny of a miser. You overhear the prices. A handful of saffron strands equals a week's wage for an attendant like you. You marvel at the absurdity, how something so weightless can command such heavy consequences. You think of the brass inkstand in your hands. Its price is invisible but not small. It has been paid in hours, in skill, in the quiet compromises made in shadowed corners. When you return to the Zenana, the Sahiba examines the inkstand. She says nothing, but the pause in her fingers as they trace its edge tells you she understands the cost. Later that afternoon, you are sent to fetch water from the stepwell. The path is steep, the buckets heavy. Each ascent feels like lifting your body out of a silence that has pressed upon you all day. You notice how water, too, is an economy here, measured in ladlefuls, guarded by those who control its flow. As you rest at the edge of the stepwell, you see two washerwomen arguing over a bar of soap. Not the fine soap used in the royal baths, but a coarse, lye-heavy brick that stings the skin. To them, it is a prized possession, an edge of survival. You return with the water, but the weight feels different now, heavier but clearer. By evening, you are assigned to assist in preparing the betel leaf trays. The ingredients, areca nuts, cardamom, lime paste, are arranged with meticulous care. You realize how even leisure here is crafted by unseen hands, how every pleasure is stitched with the labor of those who will never taste it. The economy of the palace is not gold coins changing hands. It is the silent exchange of labor for proximity, a proximity to power that never truly touches you, yet always hovers near enough to keep you hoping. Your sweat turns into someone else's gold. You finish your tasks, your fingers stained with dye, your back bent, but your mind sharper than when the day began. You understand now, tools of survival are not just knives and looms. They are gestures. They are choices about when to speak and when to remain invisible. Tonight you sleep with the scent of indigo still clinging to your skin. You dream of a market stall where a single nail cost a day's labor. And you wonder if, in another life, you might have been the one selling it. Part 8. End. You thought this world was noble, clean, cinematic. You imagined the Zenana as the poets describe it, a garden of silken whispers, perfumed shadows, and the soft clinking of anklets in moonlight. You thought its corridors would hum with secret conversations, its courtyards would shimmer with pearls of laughter. But now, as you sweep a marble floor at dawn, you realize real life is louder, slower, hungrier. The myths never told you about the sounds, the grunt of effort as an attendant lifts water urns that bruise her hips, the sharp hiss of a kitchen ladle slamming onto a stone counter, the soft but relentless scrape of a sandal dragging on a cracked heel. The world here is stitched together with these sounds, mundane, repetitive, yet unmissable. You adjust your grip on the broom. The bristles are worn, splintering at the edges. There's no poetry in sweeping. But the myth makers never lived a day in these alleys. They immortalized the courtesans draped in translucent muslin, the queens reclining on divans of sandalwood. They forgot to mention who washed those muslin veils, who beat the dust from those cushions. You are not just a servant, you are the consequence. As you sweep, you notice a trail of crushed rose petals leading from the outer courtyard to the sahiba's chamber. To the poets, this would be a symbol of luxury. But you know better. Those petals are not there to be admired. They are there to cover the stench of yesterday's spoiled pomegranate juice, spilled and left to sour. You crouch, gathering the wilted petals, feeling the stickiness beneath them. Myths never mention how often beauty is used as a veil. They only tell you of the veil, never what it conceals. Later in the morning, you are summoned to the library, a rare task. The court chronicler has requested a ledger from the Zenana archives. The air inside the library is dense with dust motes, glittering like misplaced stars. You run your fingers along the spines of manuscripts, their titles grand, their contents, sometimes, grand lies. You find the ledger. As you carry it, your eyes drift across a folio painting laid open on a table. It depicts the royal Zenana in full pageantry, ladies adorned in brocade. their faces serene, their postures effortless. The composition is perfect, balanced, every gesture elegant. You look at the faces, you wonder if any of those women ever held a broom, or an empty water pot, or their own aching feet. The painting tells a story, but not the whole story. You deliver the ledger, but the thought lingers. You think of how many myths are penned in ink while their truths are scrubbed away with lie. By midday, the Sahiba decides to visit the hammam. This is where the myths stretch themselves thin. The poets love to write of hammams, steam rising like whispered secrets, oils glistening on smooth skin, laughter echoing in tiled chambers. But you know that preparing the hammam is a labor war. Firewood must be fetched, fires tended until the bricks ache with heat. Water must be drawn bucket by bucket, mixed to the precise temperature, stirred like an alchemist's brew. And as you labor, drenched in sweat long before the Sahiba arrives, you realize the myths are always written from the side of those who enter the hammam after it is ready. You light the last of the rose-scented candles. Their flicker dances on the damp stone, casting illusions. For a fleeting moment, it almost looks like the paintings. Almost. The Sahiba enters, her attendants trailing. Her world is quieted by the effort of others. You step aside, invisible once more. But invisibility teaches you things. You notice how the Sahiba's fingers twitch when the water is too warm. You catch the fleeting grimace as she lowers herself onto the marble bench. You see the tiny gestures that never make it into paintings. And you realize myths are not lies. They are half-truths, preserved for those who can afford to believe them. The afternoon passes in small, relentless tasks. You mend a torn pillow cover, your stitches uneven from fatigue. The embroidery was once vibrant. Now it is faded, its silken threads frayed. You remember how visitors marvel at the palace's splendor. They do not see the patchwork of repairs, the quick fixes that hold this grandeur together. One hidden seam at a time. You thought the Zenana was a sanctuary of leisure. No one told you leisure has a price, and someone always pays it. In the late afternoon, a troupe of musicians arrives. The Sahiba has requested a mufil. You are sent to prepare the mufil room, arranging bolsters and incense holders. As you work, you overhear the musicians discussing their payment. A silk sash, not coins. The palace, it seems, prefers to trade in symbols rather than substance. You understand. Symbols are easier to romanticize. The mehfil begins, and the melodies spill through the courtyard. The music is beautiful. You allow yourself a moment to listen, to be lulled by the rhythms. But even as you listen, your hands are occupied, refilling oil lamps, adjusting drapes, ensuring the guest never noticed the cracked tiles beneath their feet. The myths sing of music that lifts the soul, but here music is also a tool. It masks the labor beneath it. It polishes the image while the foundation groans quietly. Night descends. You are assigned to the outer kitchen for the night's preparations. The poets will never write about the outer kitchen. Its fires are not poetic. Its heat does not glow with romance. It burns. It scars. The cook shouts for more firewood. You scurry to obey. Your arms strain under the weight. The kitchen smells of ghee, sweat, and the sharp tang of metal vessels left too long on the flame. You think of the court tales that describe royal feasts. They mention the golden platters, the intricate rice towers, the shimmering jellies. They do not speak of the burnt fingers, the slipped knives, the sleepless hands that shape those feasts. Later, as you carry a tray of desserts, Furni in delicate earthenware. You feel the tremble in your wrist. The ferny is decorated with silver leaf. It gleams under the lantern light, a perfect myth in edible form. But you know the silver leaf was hammered this morning by a young craftsman whose hands bled with every strike. You set the tray down, unnoticed. That is how myths are built, brick by brick, hand by hand. Invisible labor creating visible illusions. The night deepens. You find yourself near the lotus pond, a sign to float fresh blossoms on its surface. This, perhaps, is the only task today that feels like the poets promised. The water is still, the air is cooler. The lotus petals drift gently, their scent delicate. You wonder if this is how myths begin, a single beautiful moment, plucked from reality, polished until it blinds the rest. You kneel, watching the blossoms. For a fleeting moment, you understand why myths exist. The world needs beauty to believe in. But you also understand that beauty, when separated from truth, becomes a cage. You rise, your knees aching, and return to the storeroom to replace the empty flower baskets. As you pass the mirror-lined hallway, you catch your reflection. You look tired, but you also look real. The mirror shows you as you are, not as a servant in a poet's verse, not as a painted figure in a court miniature, but as a person who exists beyond myth. And that is enough. You are not born into a song. You are not a line in someone's folio. You are the hands that hold the world steady while it dreams of itself. And this world, despite its beauty, does not need your dreams. It needs your silence. But tonight, as you walk back to your sleeping mat, the silence feels different. Not a punishment, but a choice. The myths can remain on paper. You remain here. Part 9. End. The morning is quiet, but not in the way that soothes. It is the kind of quiet that listens, waits, holds its breath for something about to change. You feel it as you step into the courtyard, your bare feet brushing against stone that feels colder than usual. The air is heavy with unsaid things. The Sahiba's attendants move briskly, their voices clipped, their eyes avoiding each other. A message has arrived. You are not meant to know its contents. But in the Zenana, knowledge seeps through walls like dampness. The Emperor's council has rejected the Sahiba's petition. The austerity decree will not be reversed. The Sahiba's influence, once unchallenged, has been quietly diminished. This day will echo through time. The words settle into you as you carry the silver water pot towards her chamber. You are not supposed to feel the weight of politics. But how can you not when every shift in power rearranges the hands that labor beneath it? The Sahiba sits by the Jaroka, staring out at a sky that promises rain, but delivers only clouds. Her posture is composed, yet there is a stiffness in her fingers as they drum against the armrest. You set the water pot down, stepping back into your invisible space. She does not acknowledge you, but she speaks. Do you know why stories are written? She asks, her voice soft. To control what is remembered. You say nothing, but you understand. This moment, this quiet erosion of her power, will not make it into the official chronicles. It'll vanish beneath the grandeur of processions and poetry. But you will remember. The day unfolds, each task laced with the tension of a place standing on the edge of its own reflection. The Sahiba's orders are precise today, as if she's constructing a fortress from routine. You are sent to fetch sandalwood oil, to oversee the arrangement of the prayer chamber, to ensure the evening lamps are filled before dusk. Each command is a brick, each task a defense against the creeping awareness of decline. Yet, decline does not wait for permission. By midday, a courier arrives with an imperial seal. His words are brief. The emperor's treasury will now directly manage the Zenana's accounts. The Sahiba's steward will be reassigned. The Sahiba's gaze does not flicker, but you see the tightness in her jaw. The power she wielded, once absolute within these walls, is being unstitched. You carry the news in your hands as you move through the palace. The other attendants sense it too. There is a subtle shift in how they move around the Sahiba now, not in open disrespect, but in a soft recalibration. When power ebbs, even shadows adjust their posture. Later in the afternoon, you are assigned to accompany the Sahiba to the Karkhana. She rarely visits in person. Today, it is an act of presence, a statement. The Karkhana craftsmen bow low, but their eyes flicker with curiosity. They know what has transpired. Word moves faster than footsteps. As the Sahiba inspects a newly woven pashmina, her fingers linger over its texture. She compliments the weaver, not with a detached politeness of royalty, but with a weight that feels personal. You realize it is not merely the pashmina she is acknowledging. It is the labor, the quiet endurance. You wonder if, in losing the formal symbols of power, she is rediscovering the essence of it. The Karkhana master presents a ledger for her to sign. She takes the quill, but pauses. The inkstand, she says. You retrieve it, the same brass inkstand you bartered 4 days ago. She notices this. Her lips curve, not into a smile, but into a recognition. She signs. The moment is small, but you feel its tremor. On the way back, she walks slower than usual. She does not ask you to step behind. You walk in tandem, and for a few breaths, your footfalls echo evenly across the stone path. Do you think stories can be stolen? She asks. You think of the folio paintings, the court chronicles, the myths you have unlearned. You think of all the hands that built these walls, never named, never remembered. Yes, you say, though the word barely leaves your throat. She nods as if your answer was not a revelation, but a confirmation. By evening, a letter is drafted. Not for the emperor, not for the council, but for a historian, one who compiles accounts of daily life, not just royal decrees. The Sahiba dictates and you transcribe. It is not a plea for power. It is a record of the unseen. She speaks of the Karkhana women whose hands weave lineage into fabric. She speaks of the attendants whose fingers mend palace walls. With stitches of silence, she speaks of a servant who carried a petition across thresholds not meant for her feet. She does not use your name, but you are in every word. When the letter is sealed, she hands it to you. You are to deliver it discreetly, not to a steward, not through official channels, but through the alleys where stories travel truer. You understand now. Power is not always reclaimed through confrontation. Sometimes it is preserved in memory. As night settles, you make your way through the palace's quieter passages. You pass by the portrait gallery, the painted myths hanging in their gilded silence. You wonder how many truths are buried beneath those brushstrokes. Outside, the air is cooler. The city breathes differently here, away from the scented confines of marble chambers. You deliver the letter to a scribe known for his impartial chronicles. He receives it with a nod, no questions asked. He knows the weight of such documents. You return to the palace, not as a servant completing a task, but as a keeper of a turning moment. Later that night, as you light the final oil lamp in the Zenana, The Sahiba stands by the Jaroka once more. The moonlight catches the fine lines near her eyes. She does not speak. She does not need to. You feel the shift. She may have lost the favor of official seals, but in the quiet archiving of truth, she has sown a different legacy. And you are no longer merely an offering. You are the story. This day will echo through time, perhaps not in the verses sung by courtiers, nor in the scrolls approved by treasurers, but in the quiet hands that passed a letter through a city's sleeping veins. Part 10. End. The moon is out. You don't move. Not yet. You sit by the small brass lamp in your corner of the Zenana, watching its flame sway with the breath of the night. The day's weight lingers in your bones. But here, in this fragile pocket of stillness, you're allowed to feel it. Tonight, everything is quieter. The footsteps are softer, the whispers less urgent. The Sahiba's decree has been signed, sent, and now there's nothing left but to wait. You reach for the tray beside you. A small bowl of crushed vetiver roots rests there, its earthy scent rising as you grind them gently with your fingers. This is not a task. This is not an order. This is yours. The scent clings to your skin, mingling with traces of saffron and sandalwood from the day's labors. You press your palms together, inhale, and close your eyes. You have lit hundreds of lamps in these chambers, filled countless basins of rose water, laid out silken sheets for women whose dreams you will never know. Yet tonight, as you prepare the Sahiba's sleeping chamber, it feels different. The pillows you fluff are not just decor. They are a shield against the weight of disappointment. The incense you light is not merely fragrance. It is a curtain to soften memories that might press too harshly when the eyes finally close. You pour warm water into a copper basin, folding a soft cotton cloth beside it. The water reflects the flicker of the lamps, a quiet sky trapped in a bowl. You remember how the poets call the Zenana a garden of mirrors, but you know mirrors can cut as well as reflect. The Sahiba enters, her steps slower tonight. She does not look at you, but you sense her acknowledgement in the way she lingers near the basin. You offer the cloth, freshly dampened, and she accepts it without words. There is an intimacy in these routines, even when names are not exchanged. You step back as she performs her ablutions. The act is meditative, wringing out the past from her skin, folding the day's trials into the basin's rippling surface. You wonder if the water feels heavier when it carries so much unspoken. She moves to the charpoy, settling into its carved frame, and you drape a light cotton sheet over her. The air is warm, but tonight the sheet feels less like a necessity and more like a gesture, a reminder that she is still wrapped in care, even as power ebbs away. You kneel by the small lampstand, adjusting the wick until its flame softens to a murmur. The room dims, shadows stretching gently across frescoed walls. You notice the murals, scenes of celestial gardens, rivers flowing through impossible landscapes. The artist never painted the servants who filled those rivers with water, who swept those gardens clean. But tonight, you are not bitter. You are simply aware. The Sahiba's breathing slows. The rise and fall of her chest aligns with the sway of the lamp's flame. You listen, allowing your own breath to mirror hers. This is how nights should begin, not with orders or footsteps, but with breath shared in silence. You move to the adjoining chamber where the other attendants prepare their sleeping spaces. Mats are unrolled, thin quilts spread out. their patterns faded from years of careful folding. You find your own corner, familiar, yet always slightly foreign, as if the place itself remembers you, but hesitates to claim you. You sit for a while, legs crossed, letting the coolness of the stone floor ground you. The day's images replay, not as tasks completed, but as moments felt, the weight of the inkstand in your hands, the pulse of the Sahiba's words when she spoke of stolen stories, the whisper of parchment folding into a letter meant to outlive both of you. You're not just a servant, you are the story. The thought circles back, soft yet persistent. It does not demand grandeur. It does not crave applause. It simply exists, like the rhythm of your breath, like the hush of fabric settling into its folds. As you lie down, the sounds of night deepen. The soft chirp of crickets outside the lattice windows. The distant rhythmic splash of water from the step well. The low rustle of someone adjusting their mat nearby. These sounds are not interruptions. They're reminders that life, even in its smallest gestures, continues. You close your eyes, but sleep does not arrive immediately. It never does. Not when the mind still hums with the residue of the day. You think of the Sahiba, of how her influence was once a fortress, and how now it feels like a garden, open, vulnerable, yet still rooted. You wonder if she fears sleep tonight, if dreams might echo the quiet shifts of power she cannot yet voice. But you also wonder if perhaps she finds comfort in this simplicity, in knowing that beyond decrees and ledgers, there are still hands that will light her lamps, still breath that will fill these chambers with life. You realize slowly that this is not a loss. It is a turning. The myths painted the Zenana as a world detached from consequence. But tonight you understand that consequence is the quietest part of the ritual. It is not in the grandeur of processions, but in the folding of a muslin sheet. Not in the fanfare of edicts, but in the gentle snuffing of a lamp. You are the consequence, and the keeper of it. Sleep draws closer now, its edges softening the lines of thought. You let it approach, not as an escape, but as a continuation. The moonlight filters through the jolly, casting delicate patterns upon the floor. You trace them with your eyes, letting their shifting geometry lull you. The world breathes with you, not the world of courtiers and chroniclers, but the deeper, quieter world, the one that holds the weight of unseen hands. You hear a soft sigh from the Sahiba's chamber, not a sigh of defeat, a release, a surrender to rest that only comes after a day shaped by decisions that matter. Tomorrow the Sahiba will wake, and the rituals will begin again. You will pour water, fold silks, grind vetiver. But something will be different, not in the tasks themselves, but in the awareness that within these motions, legacy is woven, not through titles, but through memory. The night deepens. You adjust your quilt, its edge cool against your cheek. The scent of vetiver lingers on your fingertips. You breathe slowly, deeply, aligning yourself with the quiet rhythm of the Zenana's heart. Tonight, you are not just a servant. You are the story. Sleep now. Tomorrow, they'll call your name again. Part 11, End. You lived it. You felt it. But now, as the last lamp flickers low and the Zenana exhales into its quiet, you find yourself wondering, would you survive it again? The palace sleeps, its marble walls so grand in daylight soften into blurred silhouettes under the moon. The courtyards, once bustling, with steps and stories, are now gentle pools of silence. You walk through them slowly, bare feet against cool stone, as if retracing every moment that has brought you here. The Sahiba is asleep. The letter has been sent. The chores have been done. And yet, the air hums with an invisible pulse, a reminder that stories never truly sleep. You pause by the Jaroka, gazing into the city beyond. The lanes stretch endlessly, their alleys dark but alive. Somewhere out there, someone is telling a story about this palace. Perhaps a poet is composing verses of its grandeur. Perhaps a merchant is exaggerating the opulence of the emperor's women. They will sing of silk, gold, and pearls. They will not mention you, but you are still here. You close your eyes and let the night hold you. Not with fanfare, not with poetry, but with a quiet acceptance. The world of myths and the world of labor have always coexisted, but tonight they have met in you. Would you survive it again? The question circles back, heavier now. You think of the mornings that began with cold water and cold stairs, of afternoons spent folding fabrics whose patterns will outlive your name, of evenings where your reflection in polished brass was the only acknowledgement you received. But you also think of the small rebellions, the hidden smile exchanged with a fellow attendant after a well executed barter, the slight adjustment of a lamp's wick to cast a shadow just the way you wanted, the choice to remember the stories that others forgot. You did not survive this life through obedience alone. You survived because you chose to witness it fully. You kneel by the lotus pond. Its surface is still, but beneath you know the water teems with life. Stories are like that too, calm on the surface, but restless beneath. You drop a petal onto the water, watching it ripple outward, disturbing the perfect stillness. That is what you are, a ripple, small but unignorable. You remember how the Sahiba once told you, control what is remembered. At the time, it felt like a command. Now it feels like an inheritance. As you rise, the first blush of dawn creeps into the sky. The stars fade reluctantly, as if they too wish to linger in this in-between moment. You walk towards the kitchen where the morning fires are just being stoked. The other attendants greet you with nods, no longer perfunctory, but shared. They too carry the weight of a night filled with unsaid things. You feel no need to explain. You all understand what it means to serve, to endure, and yet to shape the narrative in ways unseen. You help knead the dough for the morning rotis. The act is simple, repetitive, but grounding. Each fold of the dough feels like a stitch in a tapestry only you can see, a story being pieced together, not for chroniclers, but for those who live it daily. Later, as the palace stirs awake, you are sent to arrange the Sahiba's morning tray. Pomegranate seeds still glistening with dew, a small silver cup of almond sherbet, a folded muslin napkin, stitched by your own hands weeks ago, though no one noted it then. You carry the tray carefully, not with the timidity of a servant fearing error, but with the quiet pride of someone delivering a message the world may never read, but must feel. The Sahiba's chamber is bathed in the soft light of morning. She accepts the tray, her fingers grazing yours, a touch so brief yet so deliberate. No words are exchanged. There is no need. In that moment, you both know legacy is not always written with ink. It is carried in gestures. You step back, allowing her the space to begin her day. But as you leave, her voice calls you back. Do you believe the story will last? You turn, meeting her gaze. You do not answer. You don't need to. The fact that you are here, breathing, standing, carrying the story in your skin, that is the answer. You exit the chamber, your footsteps light, but each step feels etched into the marble now. This palace has witnessed centuries. It has seen emperors rise, poets sing, courtiers bow. But today it has witnessed you. The day unfolds, but you move through it differently. Not because the tasks have changed, but because you have. You are no longer just following orders. You are composing the unwritten history with every action, however small. When you fetch water, you think of it as offering a reflection. When you sweep the floor, you consider it the clearing of old myths. When you adjust the wick of a lamp, you see it as framing a new story's light. Would you survive it again? Yes, but not in the way myths expect, not as a faceless figure in painted galleries. You would survive it as a ripple that disturbs the surface, as a hand that remembers the texture of reality beneath the varnish of legend. And if you're still listening, yes, you are part of a rare few who carry ancient voices in their blood. You are not watching history. You are holding it. Let me ask you now, quietly, as the palace returns to its rhythms. Could you have survived a single day in this world? Could you have folded muslin with fingers bruised from unnoticed work, yet still smoothed every crease with care? Could you have swept rose petals across marble not as an act of service, but as a quiet reclamation? Could you have lit a lamp not for its glow, but for the shadow it might cast on forgotten names? If you think you could, perhaps you already have. Sleep well, storyteller. Part 12, End.